Welcome back, friends and compadres. Today's show is brought to you by Microsoft 365 and the modern workplace to help you be efficient. There's a lot of good stuff in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and you can learn more about that in a link down below.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Good show. You know what's crazy to me is that AMD is back in the headlines again.
For all the right reasons.
For all the right reasons. It's interesting that somebody, if I understood the news correctly, somebody hacked into AMD and stole the GPU blueprints for a bunch of the upcoming AMD products, but that includes the Xbox Series X, and then they were trying to sell them online for about 100 million bones.
Yeah, sounds about right. The threat was if they don't get the money, they would then just publish the source code online, and so apparently they published at least part of it, and to multiple places, 4chan and some kind of torrent type sites, and also, by the way, ironically, to GitHub.
Yeah, I can't see why Microsoft would keep that up. What's
well, they did take it down.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, so unless it was like a nation state or something like that, like if your buddy Steve all of a sudden has 10 Bentleys and a huge mansion, you might wonder where he got the money from.
I don't think anyone was paying, but yes, AMD, of course, because as they would, are claiming like this is nothing serious and blah blah blah. But certainly not as serious as the time they showed an internet downloaded image of the Xbox Series X ports in a presentation at CES. I mean,
can't imagine. The other thing too is that it's hard without knowing exactly what it is, but if it's just like the feature sets and like the underlying, that stuff's probably pretty old at this point.
Yeah,
right. If you're about to ship a product, that it's not that technology is irrelevant. I mean, there's still patent stuff in there that I'm sure some people would love to see and figure out how to reverse engineer.
Right.
But
they won't have to reverse engineer it if they have the code.
Yeah, I guess they could just re-engineer
it.
That's where you take your friend's math homework and say make it look similar, but not quite the same.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say what it is. I don't know, but obviously, I mean, the graphics technology that they have, I would say, is AMD's core asset at this point.
It's definitely getting up there. I mean, it's
right. I mean, I think it's more important than their CPUs. But maybe whatever, it doesn't matter. It's certainly one of their top products. So, yeah, I mean, we don't really know the depth of the theft here in the sense that, if it was enough for a rival chip maker to use this to improve their own products accordingly. I don't know.
So that is out floating around if anybody is wondering what that deal is. So you can, if you want to go find it, you can, I guess. I don't know what you're going to do with it. I mean, I don't have like a custom fab shop in my backyard that I can allow me to whip up GPUs.
Use a 3D printer.
Yeah.
Make a giant version of a CPU.
I would have to guess that they were probably going to try to take this information and sell it to maybe like a Chinese company that builds knockoff products. And that they could run with that stuff and build better knockoff products.
Yeah, right. When you first hear like someone goes to like a torrent site or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, someone needs to give me $100 million. They're going to release the source code." It's like, who would pay for like? That's crazy, But then, yes, the Chinese company that would knock it off. I mean,
or maybe Jeff Bezos wants to build Fire tablets with their own whatever GPU, CPU.
It could only be an improvement. Pretty sure the thing they're using is like a tiny digital rodent running around in a wheel.
Yeah, when they get tired and they catch them in their warehouses and then put them into little tablets and say,
stick them in the tablets.
This is how it's going to run.
When there's an excess of rodents, they have a tablet sale.
God. It's like the McDonald's. There's a McDonald's sandwich like that. When they have an excess of pork, they sell it's like their baby back little riblet sandwich.
It's like molded to look like it has bones in it.
Yep.
Which is not what you would want in a sandwich. But
no, you don't really want to bite into a bone. I mean,
I guess it's maybe to look like it's pressed down in the grill or something. I don't know. The grill they don't have because whatever.
Anyways, nobody really thought they'd turn into this episode today and talk about McDonald's sandwiches, but here we are.
The McRib special.
There is no bottom.
Thursdays are McRib days here at First Thing Daily.
Apple also did something a little depending on what side of the boat. So Microsoft people are like on the fence. They can't tell because it's a little ambiguous about what Safari's trying to do, but it looks like it could be detrimental to some PWAs, but they aren't quite sure because the way Apple released it didn't quite say if it was targeting PWAs and the very so
It's not, well, no, I think I can explain it and I don't understand this completely, but I think this will make sense. What they have done is block all third-party cookies. So if you think about the way that other browsers do this, like think about a browser like Brave that is incredibly secure and good about tracking protection. Even they don't block 100% of third-party cookies, because doing so breaks the web, right? If you are sign into your Google account and blah blah blah, you're going to have to re-sign in every single time you hit on other sites, et cetera, et cetera. So they have exceptions for things like that, and if the user trusts those things, whatever. Apple's deal is like, we're not doing that. Like, we're not going to even have those exceptions. Instead, what they have done is implemented a different technology that doesn't use cookies to manage cross-site interaction, and they proposed it to the W3C as a standard. And what they expect is that it will be accepted as a standard, and then other browser makers will implement it. So I suspect, and again, I don't, like I said, don't thoroughly understand what I just said, but that's my understanding of what they're doing. Well, I don't want to present myself as an expert in this area. I'm not, but it sounds reasonable. It sounds right. And it's a big step. Apple takes privacy seriously. Obviously, we get that, but this is also going to be potentially a user experience problem for its users. So it is kind of a bold step on their part, I will say. It's reasonable to expect them to do something to some degree, but that Brave, Tor browser, maybe Firefox would probably go further because that's their shtick. But I don't know. I feel like they deserve a little credit for this, Apple, that is. So
yeah, we'll see what comes out of it. It's going to take a little time for it to manifest, and then we'll kind of see the good and bad ramifications of it. But it's definitely created a little kerfluffle, if you will, around the net.
Yeah, and the other problem is it doesn't impact most people because it only works in Safari. Safari only works on the Mac and iOS and iPadOS. So that's a tiny percentage of the total. Like, that doesn't help anyone using Windows or Android. And for those people, which most of us, what that means is this isn't going to help you in the slightest. So what your choices are what they always were, which was if this is the type of thing you really care about, you need to look at Brave, right? I think Tor browser is kind of a little extreme, for most people. I don't think we're going to see a huge uptick in Tor browser usage, but Mozilla Firefox obviously has excellent tracking protection functionality. Microsoft Edge does as well. My experience with that, of course, if you are signing into accounts like Google, you're still going to get followed around the internet. I wrote about that, but that's what browser plugins are for too, and that's the other way you can protect yourself if you're using a different browsers. There are things like Ghost is one, and there's one called it's got the word Badger in the name. I should just look at my browsers. I think I'm running it. It's called Privacy Badger. Is another way to get around that stuff if you're using a different browser, so you can protect yourself still if you don't have Safari.
Post that will go up onto Thread later today is this just kind of came out of just a random Twitter thread of people there's a question about the performance of Lockhart, which is the lower end Xbox console, possibly known as the Series S. It's going to be somewhere between, I think, around 4 to 5 teraflops of performance. Now, the Xbox One X is currently 6 teraflops. So it's is Microsoft releasing a worse console than what they already have now? But it's not. But the point of the post is that you can't compare last gen performance specs to this gen because, for example, Microsoft has already told us that with their Xbox Velocity architecture, some of their shading stuff, they can now stream 25% less data to the GPU and still achieve better quality performance.
So say those numbers again. The Xbox One, the Xbox Series X is 12 teraflops.
The Xbox One X that you can buy right now, the high-end one, is 6 teraflops.
6, okay.
And the Series S is expected to be somewhere between 4 and 5-ish teraflops is what kind of the rumors floating around right now. I'm
surprised it's that low. We don't know what the S is. The S is probably...
I think the S is 2 or something.
2, yeah. Okay.
So the target for it, I believe, is 1080p 60 frames per second is what the goal
which is what it should be, right?
Right, because if you want a 4K box, you buy the Series X. If you want a 1080p box, you buy the Series S. And then you'll get the ray tracing and other benefits, but it's just targeting a different resolution, so it doesn't need it. And the fact that it's significantly more optimized, because Jaguar cores are like approaching a decade old at this point. So
I think what you just said to me is the most important story here, the part of the story, which is because people are always, what are the specs, what are teraflops, what are blah blah blah, and it's like, no, look, Xbox Series X, sorry. The goal is 4K, 60 frames a second or more all of the time, no matter what you're doing. Like, that's the baseline. It has to be. That's what makes sense for that thing. Yep. And then what you just said for the Series S or whatever they're going to call that is 1080p, 60 frames a second or better all the time, no matter what you're doing. And like that makes total sense.
That's all you need.
That is the right positioning.
Yep. And you get the ray tracing support. You get the same visual fidelity, but just at 1080p, which is significantly easier to process than, I mean, look at the One X. It already does 4K 30. So
I should hop into, I should turn on my Xbox One S. I don't know where it is, actually. It must be upstairs. And I've been using the X, well, since it came out. I mean, I kind of don't even look at I wonder what, like, because the S, in the same way that Xbox One X today doesn't do 4K all the time. In fact, the game I play, it probably does less than 1080p. The S absolutely doesn't do 1080p all the time. I mean, that's interesting. I should look at that. I'm curious. I mean, if you play some of these modern games we've been playing lately,
it'll load a little slower.
Well, and what will it look like?
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of curious. Because I remember going back to, it would have been Call of Duty World War II, whatever year that came out. So that would have been like 2.5 years ago, probably. I did at that time test it on the S, and it was noticeable. Like, you could tell the difference. I wonder.
So maybe you can hear that noise. Maybe you can't. My furnace turned on, and now the water pump is pumping all the water away.
I actually did hear something there.
And it sounds like a bubbler, sort of. Now it's off. So
I couldn't tell you what it sounded like, but I did catch it.
Yeah. So now, you got anything else for today, Mr. Paul?
I do not.
Good.
All right.
I will have a post eventually, because I started working, taking notes on it. Because this is one of those kind of rare times where I'm coming in like really fresh to it, which is the parental controls in the Microsoft ecosystem. Because I had 0.0 reason to ever look at this stuff until, I don't know, 6 years ago when my kid was born, and now that she's in first grade. So I started to play around with it, and I'm just going to write a post about that kind of onboarding experience and what's good, what sucks, and that'll probably come out early next week, I think. So since it's already Thursday, maybe tomorrow if I'm lucky, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So
okay.
All right, there we go, folks. And today's show is brought to you by Microsoft 365. You can find a link down below, and we'll catch all of you right back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, because today is Thursday, if my calendar is correct, and my biological clock isn't totally screwed, which means that we should be live at 1 p.m.